Welcome to Wisdom Keepers of Earth. And today, my guest is Michelle MacEwan. I came across Michelle's beautiful blessings on her Instagram account and was instantly captured by her beautiful, gentle, flowing nature. Upon further investigation, I discovered there's an immense depth to her wisdom, and I'm so grateful that she said yes to this interview. A little background on Michelle is that she's been designing life-changing individual, group, and wild wisdom experiences steeped in powerful interweaving of her inherited Gaelic tradition with Northern European shamanic wisdom. She's a spiritual teacher, storyteller, activist who comes from a long lineage of natural healers and wisdom keepers. Michelle works with those who are ready to discover and enhance their deepest inner wisdom. She also runs a wildlife rescue center in Australia, where she rehabilitates injured and orphaned animals and mentors and trains wildlife carers. Michelle's passion for wildlife is part of her greater mission to raise awareness about the wild and our place in nature. Welcome, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melinda. It's so good to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, there is such breadth and depth to who you are that, boy. So you come from this tradition of healers. So you sort of were born into this, or did you decide that you were going to choose it, or how did you check?
No, there was no choice. It was part of my family, and of course, not everybody takes it up. But I think when it chooses you, you don't choose it. And I grew up with the stories, just as you might grow up if mum and dad are a nurse or a doctor or, a mental health care worker. You grow up with stories about what these different members of the family do. And I grew up, especially the stories of my great aunt and great great aunt, and the work that my great aunt did was very similar in her way to what I do. But I think, as in any tradition, and we can use the word shamanic as a good, it's become a very popularized word. What does it really mean? It's from a group of people in Siberia, the Tungus people, but it's become popularized, so people kind of know what you're talking about. And for me, the shamanism is the indigenous spiritual pathway of a place, and the amazing truth about it is that there are no rules. And because there's no rules, it's free to adapt these teachings, these ways. In Scotland and Ireland, we call them the old ways. Shan knows the old ways. And if they were fixed by rules, they wouldn't survive from generation to generation. So what you have, whether it's inherited or learnt or whatever, is free for you to make your own and express it. And as you express it, you breathe your life force into it and make it relevant to the time that you're living in, the people that you're working with. And in that way, we grow our own wisdom. So our ancestors have, given us an incredible knowledge base with their wisdom interwoven in that, and then our job is to develop our own wisdom as we travel our pathway.
And what's your focus, do you feel, that you've brought to this? What is the element that you have brought to what your ancestors have given you?
Yes, that's a great question. Well, I've certainly adapted to the modern times, and the needs of the modern times. And some of those needs, I think, have never changed with humanity. The need to feel safe, to feel protected, to feel loved, to be able to love, all those things aren't new. They're they're interwoven into the very fabric of life, no matter what era you live in. For me, the emphasis has really been about the wild. And if you think about it, we were wild, part of the wild, far longer than we've been civilized. You know, how many generations were we part of the wild before we started changing that? But within us is still that innate wild wisdom. It's ours by birthright as members of this, planet. And I think bringing awareness around this wild wisdom, intuition, instinct, imagination, knowingness, the spiritual, the developing spiritual qualities are part of wild wisdom. And that trusting, that knowingness, knowing how we know, knowing what we know without quite knowing how we know it. And I really think that that's an important part of what I help people to not only discover but trust. And of course, the poetical voice is very important. Now, that's always been important. Wisdom codes, be it prayer, blessings, just any sacred words, mantras. And in my culture, a lot of those threads have been lost or not passed down, or they're very weighted on, like one side of one spiritual pathway, such as Christianity, which isn't the whole picture and doesn't work for everybody. So the prayers and the mantras and the blessings are very important because they're a very condensed teaching within each one of them. There's a protection, there's a healing. They're words that you can speak yourself and draw that energy to you, but you're also speaking words that are weighted with time, with the ancestral knowledge and wisdom. And when you speak them, they become yours, because spoken word on breath is creation. So there's multi-facets to wild wisdom. It doesn't matter whether you're on a healing journey, a spiritual discovery journey, understanding your place in the world, whatever it is for you, discovering a new dream, creating a new vision. Wild wisdom, for me, is where we must go in order to create.
Do you feel that, well, there's two parts to this question. Obviously, the wild wisdom idea is so enticing because we live in such a fast-paced modern world. And personally, I feel drawn to this idea of getting back to nature, getting back to that more wild, instinctual, intuitive self, right? And then the other aspect of that would be, how does one bring that wild wisdom into their current situation in a very busy setting with, big cities or wherever they are, wherever they live? How do they draw that back into themselves?
Great questions. So I think one of the really important things is to remember that we are nature, not separate. And so a lot of the practices that I teach, such as life is a journey, nothing has ever been for nothing. All your experiences are part of helping you become who you're becoming. And if you don't hang on to them, if you live in the moment rather than constantly ruminating about the past, then the past takes its rightful place, and those experiences become part of your wisdom that you have to share with the world. So wild wisdom teaches us that within us all is a healer, a teacher, a visionary, a warrior, or a leader. And tapping into those parts of ourselves gives us an incredible strength, an inner strength that we all need right now. And so in the busy modern day, I say to people, every day, take 5 minutes at least and go outside and be with the rest of your environment, your ecosystem, where you live, whether it's your garden or if you live in an apartment, just go outside and look up at the sky and your consciousness will expand, and it will ground you into a sense of where you are. Look up at the clouds or the stars, or, whatever nature is available. If there's a tree growing on the nature strip, go and, lean against it, lean into it, and share a few moments, because everything on this planet is alive, sacred, and connected. And when we start to live with that awareness, it changes everything. And so even if you're in a really busy city, you walk past the beautiful flowers that are growing and say hello, like have an exchange.
Yes.
Because, life on earth is all about reciprocity, and giving and receiving equals balance. And so to go out into nature, the rest of nature, even for 5 minutes, whatever's available, watch the leaves moving with the wind, listen to the birds' song, the way the light is on the trees or the buildings, like connect viscerally with the rest of nature and get your sense of being part of it. And it's more profound when we place ourselves in a situation where we're going to find a bit of wonder and awe lurking. And, if you're looking at the sky, there'll be something you'll suddenly go, look at the shape of that cloud, look at that light, look at the sunset, the proverbial aha moment. Those moments are so important for our well-being, our healing journey, our spiritual journey. Moments of wonder and awe place us firmly in the now and open our heart.
Yes, well said. I find that the idea of stepping out into nature exhilarating, in the sense that if I wake up in the morning and I open my door and I say hello to my bushes and my trees and stuff, inevitably the birds respond. Or if I'm driving up through my valley, we have these gorgeous monkey pod trees that make a canopy. If I say hello, I can feel them. It's like they can see me and they're waving at me.
Exactly.
So the awareness that you're asking us to instill or observe, be more observant of what's out there. The messages are there. Nature will talk back to us. Even the shape of the cloud,
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. It's all there. We're still part of the whole. And, to recognise our place in the whole earth system is important, that we are a strand in the great spiritual web of life. And we must tend that strand, because we change one thing, everything changes. And I think it's really important for us to come into that place of knowingness and understanding, and start to, lose our attachments that we form to things that aren't important. Ask ourselves, if, this was my last day, what are the important things? And it's quite shocking for some people to come to that place of realization of, what we have.
That's a good exercise.
Right.
That's a very good exercise. Be surprised what comes to mind first,
I know. Well, this is the thing. And I have lost very close loved ones. My first husband died when I was 32. And, it's incredible when when you face that time is finite, that we've got time and then it's gone. How do you want to use your time? It's Mother Earth's gift to us, the cycling of the seasons, the circle of life. Time is the gift that Mother Earth gives life.
Yes.
So how do we want to spend our time? And, the wildlife work I do, I specialise with a particular species of wallaby called a swamp wallaby, or Wallabiea bicolour. And they're very unique in the macropod family. They've got less chromosomes than other species of wallaby, so they're very ancient and very, very clever. And we often, if the mum gets hit by a car or her legs get caught in fencing, they're so fragile. Even though they're so strong and fast and powerful, they're very fragile within the human world. So oftentimes, not always, but, the joey will survive if there's a joey. And if it's of a viable size, we take them on and we raise them. And that can be a commitment of anywhere from 9 months to 2 years, depending on how old the joey is, how big it is, how fragile it is. And one of the things I learned very quickly were the important things that we all need to survive. And this is the great teaching. And this is how working with wildlife really informs my work with humans. The number one thing with the joeys is safety. Safety. If they don't feel safe, they'll die within a very short period of time. And love, and I just love them so much. It's not hard, I tell you, but they love you straight back. And once they've bonded with you, you can imagine a joey living in the pouch. The pouch is like a womb on the outside of the body. And for at least the first 4 months, the joey gets no daylight, just nestled in there. There's 2 teats, one for when it's tiny, one for when it gets bigger. Mum cleans everything. The pouch self-regulates temperature. It's a perfect environment. And to take a fragile little being out of that perfect environment, we have to replicate that environment. We have to take that, while it's a tiny, we have to take that baby everywhere with us, whether we've got 1, 2, 3, I've got special pouches we hang in the car, and we take them out for walks. We give them experiences as much as we can, that they're with their mother, and you learn to walk and see and observe things from their eyes. And you realise the sort of capacity that we have as part of nature, not separate, and that we're letting that go at a rapid rate. And so the wildlife have shown me a lot that I might have forgotten.
That's lovely. That is really lovely. Thank you for that work you're doing. And we want to let people know how they can get involved, if, a donation process or, an email or a website. We'll post.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I have a membership, and it's currently, I've got a fine website, michellemckewan.com.au. I think you can do michellemckewan.com as well, or if you search my name or Wild Wisdom, but we do call the membership, it is called Wild Membership, but it comes under my website, which is my name.
And that's the wildlife rescue name, Wild Wisdom.
No, that's my membership for humans.
Okay.
So that's the Wild Wisdom membership is called Wild Membership, and it currently just has 1 level, but on the new site there'll be 3 levels. It's all video based, and I've been making videos for 4 years, and it's a great membership. We meet regularly. I do also send out a free monthly practice, so everybody on my list gets that, the members and everyone else. So that you can also do via my website. You can go on and sign up for the free monthly practice and the odd newsletter and get involved that way.
Oh, beautiful. One of the things that I know we haven't really discussed is your poetry. And you're a very prolific poet, and I feel this wild wisdom coming through your poetry. And I also feel it coming through your storytelling and your blessings. For these times, which are ever changing energetically, is there a particular...
Rapidly.
Yeah, rapidly. Is there a story that you feel would give us some wisdom for these times that you can share with us from one of your traditions?
I do have a story from my tradition, and it's a woman who's a true historic figure, but of course a lot of myth and legend sprang up about her. But Her name is Granuaile O'Malley, or Gracie O'Malley, and she is known now as the Pirate Queen of the west coast of Ireland. And she was alive in the 1500s. My dates are terrible, but she was the daughter of the chief of the O'Malley clan. And in those days, the west coast of Ireland, people were seafarers, and they had little boats and sailboats, and they got around from island to island and shoreline to shoreline with their little traditional boats, as in inland people might have ponies or horses or go by foot. And Granuaile grew up to take her father's place because there was no son, and she was trained with the men. And back in that era, Ireland was still under salient law. The chieftains, the clans, the chieftains were the protectors of their people and the providers for their people. Sovereignty, truly sovereignty. And Granuaile was the same age as Elizabeth I. And of course, Elizabeth, the age of expansionism, and the English were driving across into West Ireland, and Granuaile ran her fleet. And because of the nature of the landscape that she inhabited, it was very hard to catch her. And so there's the story. She had two husbands. The first one was killed in battle. She divorced the second one. But with her second husband, she had her, I think, fourth child or fifth child. And she was out at sea, and the ship came under attack, and she was down below giving birth. And she'd just given birth, and the first mate's rapping on the door saying, Madam, we need you on deck. We need you on deck. And she wrapped the sheet around her, rushed up, grabbed a gun and shot the pirate. There were pirates from invading them and trying to board and take over. And she rallied the men. And so it's this thing of sovereignty and that following that truth of sovereignty. And Tibbet Nilong, his name, he was called Tibbet Nilong, Tibbet of the boat, grew up and became the leader after his mother died. And there was a great battle, a famous battle of Kinsale, which decided the fate of Ireland. And so all the Irish chieftains were gathering, and the English were gathering, and the French were supposed to be coming over to support the English. And when all the troops gathered down in the south of Ireland, they were waiting for Tibbet Nilong to turn up with his boats, because he would sway the battle, because they were pretty evenly spaced, the soldiers, the cavalry, the powers to be. And so Tibbet finally turned up with his boats, and he sized up the battle, and he raised the Union Jack, and he became perhaps the most hated figure in the whole of Ireland because, of course, the English won the day. But what he did, and this is a real lesson in leadership, was he honoured his sovereignty. And his first duty was not to the people of the whole of Ireland, but to his people, to his clan. And because of that, because he weighed it up and he decided that the battle was lost no matter what side he chose. So he chose the winning side, and his people were preserved and allowed to continue to live on their land without really any rights, but they survived and were not slaughtered. The thing about Granuaile, to go into her story, was that she was horrified by the way the soldiers were treating her people. And she managed to get an audience. She was actually in prison, and she managed to get an audience with Elizabeth. And because she believed that if Elizabeth knew how her soldiers were treating the people as sovereign, she would make it stop. And that's the difference between the two.
Did it work?
She did receive her freedom. She said to Elizabeth, if you free me and allow me back on my ship, then my fleet will protect the waters for your majesty. But, of course, she never did that. She went back to her pirating ways because, pirating was just a way of surviving the taxes that the English were So
Yeah.
smuggling and pirating and, all of that became a way of life on the west coast of Ireland, honestly, probably in the east as well. I don't know the east
And I
as
read
well as
somewhere
the
about Granuaile. I've read her story where the way that the inlet was, where her ships were, that there were so many areas to hide and to maneuver. And
That is true of all of her places. And let's bear in mind that she had at least 5 castles along the coast between County Mayo and County Galway. Southern Connemara, her most southerly castle is at a ruin at a place called Bun Owen, which means foot of the stream. And the reefs offshore made it impossible for anybody else to get close. So every castle that she had was protected by the nature. The one at Streamstown Bay, it's a very narrow, long bay, and then there's like a little island that juts out. Her castle was there. Over on Inishboffin, she had a castle there, which was taken over by Cromwell in his era, and he imprisoned all the leaders of the rebellion, which was mostly priests and monks. And so, yes, and her home castle was in Mayo in Clew Bay. And Clew Bay has 365 odd islands in it. And Clare Island, which was her home base ancestrally, it was very hard. The British could not navigate in there for a very long time. And that's why she held sway on the seas.
The thing that I found, yes, that's right. They just couldn't navigate around that area.
Yeah, it was too treacherous. The whole coast was treacherous.
The thing that I found interesting about her story was that she became the leader that they respected, from the father to the daughter. There must have been something about her that was so strong.
Yeah, she was sovereign. Yeah. Yeah, she had that. That was why I used that example of the she's giving birth below the decks. And this is a very famous story, whoever knows the truth of these stories, but they become the teaching stories. And that's the mystique around her that she evolved. And she grew up on the ship from a little kid with her father. So as she grew, she would be emulating his sovereignty. And in those days, it was unusual for women to be the leaders. If we were to go back, 1,000 years, then women were at the forefront of riding into battle and being leaders. But that was stamped out as Christianity started to prevail back in the era of Patrick. And but there are wonderful stories about those early Christian days where there was no religious war fought in Ireland. The Christians came in. They sent a few young monks over the sea to check out these wild people, and a lot of those monks actually became more Irish than the Irish, same as the Normans when they invaded. They liked it and stayed and became more Irish than the Irish and adopted Irish names and all sorts. So as Christianity grew stronger in Ireland, they adopted it as a way of the heart. Because there was no real war, it intermingled and coexisted for a long time with the sacred groves and the little wooden Celtic Christian churches. And it wasn't until Patrick came along and burnt down all the groves and changed everything. But for a long time, so that's why we still have so many saints in Ireland, like Saint Bridget. Now, Saint Bridget, there's a great story. She was the goddess Bridget before she was Saint Bridget. She was goddess of the East, of prophecy, of smithcraft, which is alchemy, magic, and poetry, which is the language of the soul of the world. So she was a creation goddess, and those deities were so powerful that the Christians made them saints. So we have Saint Bridget. And if you go to her country of Kildare, you find the Brigidine nuns, and they still light the perpetual flame to Bridget every Imbolc, which is the Bridget festival of life beginning again. And so, there's wells all over Ireland that are consecrated holy wells of Saint Bridget. But the Brigidine nuns will tell you that before Saint Bridget was the goddess Bridget, and it's all about healing. And people come from all over the world every February, start of February, to celebrate with the Brigidine nuns and go out and drum and go in a big circle around, the fire, light the fire, and say the holy prayers of Saint Bridget and weave her cross, because every Imbolc we'd weave the Bridget's cross, which is the star Sirius, the dog star, and it's also the shape of a swastika, which is the sun moving through the sky. And so we have all these traditions and more, but it's an incredible testimony to the survival of our culture, our traditions, our wisdom codes and our ways. And really, there's a lot of that interwoven throughout the whole of Wild Wisdom. And I've created a series of videos, The Roots of Wild Wisdom, which where I really expound that, and I go into some of the Nordic, because the Nordic people were interwoven with, they were travelling down. Before the Vikings, you hear all about the Vikings and the invading. Vikings established a number of cities in Ireland, including Limerick, and they had a big hand in Dublin, and they brought, their wisdom with them. But there was a lot of peaceful interreacting between especially the Highlands of Scotland and the Nordic peoples, but also in Ireland as well. So we've got all that mystery and magic, and that's why I'm steeped in the Northern mysteries as well, because they resonate. And I've worked a lot in Scandinavia, especially Denmark, and done pilgrimages there and worked with groups of people there. And it's very powerful interweavings that have gone on over the, thousands of years of interaction. So it's a very rich culture, and it saddens me to see people grasping at things that they don't really understand when they've got their own traditions that they can tap into and help to restore.
Yes. Well, there must be something to us connecting, because I have a Danish-Irish background.
How fantastic.
My grandfather was Danish and my grandmother was Irish.
And what was your grandmother's name?
Carnes. The last name was Carnes. And
so Carnes will be... Well, Carnes will be a more anglicised version of the family name, I'd say. The Gaelic name might surprise you. And when you know the name, you can find out where it originates in Ireland.
Mm.
And what part of Denmark?
Denmark? I'm not exactly sure which part of Denmark that side came from, but I know my grandfather was born in New York, so he was the first generation off of, so.
Lots of good exploring. We'll have to get you over on a pilgrimage sometime.
Yes, count me in.
Yeah. What's next? Because there's always what's next. Nothing is ever the end until we, exhale our last breath. And that's another thing that I love to teach, is how, death is the centre of life. Birth and death are the same doorway, and it's the centre of life, and there's nothing to be afraid of. We're constantly going into the unknown and uncertainty, and we've got to view those places as the fertile ground where things transpire, not where all is lost and all is ended.
And your greatest inspiration comes from where, do you think?
The Southern Ocean, the night sky, the stars, the land, listening to the earth speak. It's all around me, and it's within me, because as within, so without. And so just where I live is my greatest source of inspiration, the land here, the dreaming. And I, up until a few months ago, I was spending a lot of time up in the Northern Territory in the national park called Kakadu, living and working with the people there. And it was the same thing, that's where they get all their knowledge, wisdom, inspiration from what they call country. Indigenous or traditional owners in Australia refer to country as the land that they live on, the land that their generations have grown up through. So going to country means going home. And this is here. I'm on country here. This is my country. This incredible ancient place right on the shores of the Southern Ocean with the blasting wind and the incredible night sky, the Milky Way. Doesn't matter what time of day I step out, and I am inspired.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I want to take a moment and honor your, was it your great-great-grandmother?
My great aunt.
Your great aunt.
The great grandmothers and all going back in the MacEwan family.
Yes, we want to say thank you to them. We honor and respect their teachings that are coming.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, and I always, I always honour where I'm teaching, in West Island, the ancestors and spirits of the land there, the ancestors and the spirits of the land here, and all my ancestors, of course. And that's part of my everyday, is to remember all of them and keep them in my heart, because I think when you live with that awareness that every moment, every breath you take is your spiritual practice. It's not like, oh, now I need to go and do my meditation, or now I need to go and do my spiritual practice. When you live with, and this is what I teach in Wild Wisdom, that everything you do is your practice.
Yes.
Initially you have to have guidelines and give yourself yep, every night I'm going to switch everything off at 8 o'clock. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to, get your rhythm going. But eventually you forget that, and it just becomes part of your everyday.
Yes.
Part of my practice is creating creating from scratch or putting together or hybridizing old codes and posting them. And I'm also going to create all of those, the really good posts, into short, tiny little films that I'll post on in my membership and on my YouTube.
Great. That's beautiful. And once again, Michelle, I'm going to put you on the spot and invite the beautiful wild wisdom from within you and that which comes from your beautiful ancestors to grace us with a blessing.
Well, that's so funny, because I had thought I'd read a blessing, which I'll do, but
yes,
I think that the greatest blessing is to know your ancestors and to feel them shielding you this day, this night, and every day. And, when we think about receiving on that level, may you receive the blessings of your loved ones. May your heart be open, and may you know the wisdom that you have inherited this day and every day. And I did think I'd read this blessing for everybody. It's a recent one that I posted, actually. And it is called The Beauty Blessing. And it kind of encapsulates everything that I was saying about beauty earlier. In the beauty of the earth, may you find your centre. In the rhythm of the seasons, may you find peace. May you walk in beauty always, in balance with the living earth. From dawn till dark, from dark till dawn, may beauty be the wellspring of your heart.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And thank you, Michelle MacEwan of Wild Wisdom, for agreeing to be on Wisdom Keepers of Earth. This is just delightful. I look forward to having more conversations with you.
Oh, that would be absolutely wonderful. I look forward to that too. Reach out anytime. I absolutely am so appreciative of your time today and inviting me. And I look forward to speaking again anytime. Just reach out.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Listen, my friends, the way is clear. Feel your feet on the earth. Feel the heart's pathway unfold before you. Follow the pathway. Look for the signs. Listen to your heart. It alone knows the way. Light your candles. The gods have come. Look for the eagle. See where she goes. It is from there they come, and the path unfolds. Look to the heavens, to the possibilities. Follow your light and the flow of the path. Don't be afraid. Let your heart lead the way of your truth.